Lighthouse family, it's Brother Brian, Sister Becky Adams coming to you from our home again. And we just wanted to give a shout out to our friends and family who's watching. Send some love your way, send some encouragement and a devotion this evening. And also from the video last week where I had asked our kiddos about what some of the big ideas were that they wanted to do just as soon as the quarantine and the social distancing was over. And man, we really got some great comments. And that's what I actually want to share first. So some of the ideas that our kids want to do just as soon as all this mess is over. And the first one is from my old buddy, Brantley Carter. And who, by the way, dressed up as Batman with his cape and a tie for church this past Sunday. So that was pretty slick. And Brantley Carter says he just wants to go back to school. So I can't blame you for that, Brantley. I mean, school is such a great time to spend with your friends and your teachers, and I think that's wonderful. And the second one is from Jack Flannery. And Jack says that he just wants to be able to go and eat at Pal's. Can't blame you on that either, man. I'm a fan of the Big Pal myself. Yeah. And then we have Ava Bryant. And Ava says that she wants to go swimming once all this is over with. That sounds pretty cool.
Pretty good idea.
And then we have Lola Bryant. And Lola says that she wants to go to the YMCA and hang out. That sounds pretty spot on there too. And then we had a comment from Braden Hass, and Braden says that he wants to go to the park and play. That sounds like a lot of fun right there, Braden. Great job, man. And then we have a comment from Caroline Berry, and Caroline says that she just can't wait to get out of the house.
I hear you, girl.
And then we have a comment from Brother Carter Berry. And Carter says that he can't wait to go to the flea market with Papa William and get back to church.
I like that.
Man, I tell you what, count me in on the flea market trip too, Carter. That sounds like a great time. Oh, guys, thank you so much for all the comments. And thank you, parents, for getting your kids involved and helping out with getting the comments online. That has been so cool just to be able to see their comments and hear about all their great ideas. So thank you all for sharing those ideas with us.
Now I want to share with you something from my heart that I feel like the Lord shared with me and allowed me to kind of learn some things from a Bible story that I've known for a long time and just explored a little bit more. So I wanted to share these things with you. And that is about finding your voice. And I feel like this really was impressed upon me because of an experience that I had about a week ago. And just an observation that I made from someone in our church that had a really great idea, but was super afraid to share it. And it just made me realize how important it is to make sure that our kids, our young people, even the adults, can find their voice, no matter what that may look like for you. It may be different for each of us, but it's super important to find our voice. So I sat down and read the book of Esther again, and here are some things that I learned from the story. So King Xerxes threw a feast, and he wanted to show off his beautiful wife, Queen Vashti. And he wanted to show off the wealth of his country. So he called for his wife to come to him, and she refused. So the people that were close to him advised him to divorce her.
Because we can't be having that happen.
No.
Gosh.
Because you can't let everyone in your country that you rule over think that it's okay to disobey your husband. Divorce her. Give her crown to someone else. So he did. And the search began for all the new young hip brides to come in. So they went through their 12 months of beauty treatments. And can I say, I thought like a couple hours at the spa was nice, but 12 months of beauty treatments?
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
So Esther was one of the women that were brought in to be in line to potentially be the queen. And she quickly won favor in the king's eyes. And he loved her more than any of the other women. So, of course, he made her the new queen. So King Xerxes threw a feast in Queen Esther's honor, because she was the new queen. And during that feast, Mordecai, which was her uncle that was raising her, overheard that there was an assassination attempt on the king's life. So of course he let Esther know about that. She told the king, and the king had it investigated, and it was true, and his life was saved. So Haman was a right-hand man of the king, and he quickly advanced in rank. The king had ordered that everyone should bow to Haman when he comes through. But Mordecai refused to bow to him. So that made Haman hate him. And he knew he was Jewish, so that made him hate all Jewish people. So Haman devised a plan that he wanted to kill all the Jews. He wanted to influence the king to have all the Jews killed and exterminated. So he began to cast lots, looking for some luck on what would be the best time to, bring this to the king and to go forward with his plan. So finally, after several months of casting lots, his luck came up and he approached the king, and the king was like, yeah, go ahead. If these people are giving you trouble, he's not going to bow to you like I've said. Go ahead. Put the decree out to exterminate them. And of course, once this decree went out, Mordecai heard word of it, and he was absolutely terrified. So Mordecai was in mourning. He tore his clothes. He was outside of the palace in arms. He was so upset. And Esther got word of it, and she sent somebody to him like, what's going on with Mordecai? Please go find out. So somebody goes out to find out what's going on with you, Mordecai. Queen Esther wants to know. And he fills them in on the news that Haman has, asked the king to kill all the Jews. And Mordecai's like, Esther, you have to do something about this. Word was sent back and forth between Mordecai and Esther a couple times. Mordecai wanting Esther to go into the king and to make her aware of this, but she obviously knew, like everyone, that you cannot approach the king unless you're called for. And the king had not bid her to come into his throne room. So Esther's like, I will lose my life. I will die if I walk into his throne room uninvited. So Mordecai warned Esther and said, don't think just because you're in the royal palace that you will be spared if all the Jews are sentenced to be killed. He said, if you don't speak up now to save your people, relief and deliverance may come from a different means, but you and your father's house will be destroyed. And Mordecai said, who knows if you weren't put in this position for such a time as this.
Wow.
So he was encouraging her, what a time to use your voice to save your people.
Wow. So it sounds like Esther was sort of scared to speak up and let her voice be heard, but at the same time, it sounded like it was a pretty critical move that she do that.
For sure. So Esther, instead of just saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to run into the king's throne room and approach him with this, she did a very wise thing. She told Mordecai to gather the Jews and for them to fast and to pray for 3 days. And on the third day, she would enter the king's throne room with this information.
It's going to be risky.
Yeah, completely. And that's what she told Mordecai. I'm risking my life, but she's risking her life to save her people. So on the third day, after she had Mordecai and all of her handmaidens and everyone come together and fast and pray, she entered the king's throne room. And as soon as he saw her in all her queenly attire, she immediately won favor with him, and he held out the golden scepter, and her life was spared. And he said, Queen Esther, ask me anything. What do you want from me? He said, ask me for anything to half the kingdom, and it's yours.
Wow.
Yeah. He really liked her.
Sounds like it.
So she simply said, I want you and Haman to come to a feast tonight. Simple enough. So the king and Haman went to a feast that Esther threw for them. And Haman was happy-go-lucky because it was a feast only for the king and for Haman. So Haman left to go home that night and was super excited. But, of course, he passed by the gates and saw Mordecai there again, and he wouldn't bow down to him. And so he said, I'm in such good spirits, but all this is worthless if Mordecai still won't bow to me. So he went home, he was complaining about it with his family, and his wife encouraged him to make a gallows. So they thought, yeah, let's hang Mordecai because he won't bow to you and he's the thorn in your side. So basically, Haman fashioned a gallows that he wanted to hang Mordecai on. But at the same time, Mordecai's good deed was being read in the king's remembrance, and the fact that he was not given anything for sparing the king's life.
Oh.
Yeah. So Haman's plan got foiled, and Mordecai was paraded around the streets on a royal priestly horse led by Haman of all people.
Oh my gosh.
And at that time, Haman knows he's done for. He's like, yeah, this person is special. Mordecai is something else. So after they parade Mordecai around and celebrate him for saving the king's life, it's time to go to the feast again. Because Queen Esther asked the king and Haman to come to another feast the next night. So here they come in for another feast. And the king is like, again, Queen Esther, what would you ask of me? I will give you anything up to half of my kingdom. That's a lot. And so at that point is when she exposes the plan that Haman had to destroy all the Jewish people. And that's when she was able to share her nationality and being Jewish, that meant that she would be exterminated. And that outraged the king. Who is this man that's going to try to destroy my queen?
Yeah, tables got turned on him that way.
Yeah, for sure. So then Haman's pleading for his life with Queen Esther, but things did not end up so good with him because the gallows he made for Mordecai was used for himself. They hung him on the gallows he had made for Mordecai, his enemy.
So it sounds like Haman was killed by the works of his own devices then, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
My goodness.
So basically, at the end of the story, Esther is put over all of Haman's house, and she eventually appoints Mordecai to be over Haman's house. And Mordecai gets the king's signet ring, and any decree that is issued out in the king's name with the signet ring cannot be nullified by anyone. And that's a super powerful thing. And the Jews, instead of being destroyed, were given the right to defend themselves. Anyone that was trying to come against them, as Haman had originally planned, they were actually able to defend themselves against those people. And so all the Jewish people were saved. And the Bible actually tells us that people of other nationalities became Jewish at that time because they feared those people and their God. That's pretty powerful. So after I read through that story, I thought, wow, that's a lot of information. And I was kind of puzzled by the fact that Queen Vashti, she disobeyed her husband and was sentenced to divorce. She was not able to be the queen anymore. And Esther, she also disobeyed a law that you couldn't enter the king's throne room without being called.
That's true.
But she was rewarded for that.
Wow.
That was very interesting to me. Esther was very favored by the king. She was also surrounded by a lot of very powerful, wise, special people that gave her very wise, sound advice. So a really important takeaway that I got from this lesson is how important it is to find your voice and to use it appropriately.
Yeah.
Think about all the people that we have influence over. We got to be so careful and wise with finding our voice and making sure that it takes into account people's best interest.
Right.
It's also super important, just like Esther, that you surround yourself with people that will give you very supportive, sound advice and that will give you wise, godly counsel. I also can't help but wonder what would have happened if Esther would have compared herself with what happened to Queen Vashti. She probably would have been so scared that she would have either been killed or, not been able to be the queen anymore, that she would have stayed quiet. And it made me think how important it is to not be crippled with comparison. Don't let comparison paralyze you. Yes, it's in our nature to want to compare ourselves to each other, but it's also in our nature to want to lie, but we try not to do that. So try not to compare yourself to others. You are who you are. Be who you are. Something else that really stood out to me in this story was to be someone that the Lord can trust. The Lord gave Esther a mission to save the Jewish people, and he was able to trust her with this because she fulfilled it. And you may be thinking, how can I find my voice in this world? I'm so quiet and I'm shy and I'm an introvert. Well, hello, I am too. But the Lord will make room for you in this world. Something that I remember, such a powerful thing that I learned from the late, great Bishop G.D. Peters, was your gifts will make room for you in this world. And
I remember that too.
Yeah, that's so true. You don't have to push and pry and make things happen. The Lord will open doors for your gifts to make room for you in this awesome world. If you're quiet, that's okay. If everybody was loud and outgoing, think of how loud the world would be. Just be you and be comfortable who you are. And I encourage you to find your voice. If you have good ideas, share them with the leaders that you are connected under.
Well, thanks guys for joining us. And we love you guys. We miss you. We'll see you Sunday morning at our first church service back in the church building. And we're looking so forward to that. And so from our home to yours, God bless you guys. We love you.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.